All right, Shalom. First and foremost, gonna give all glory, honor, praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Kakadash. Double honors to the apostle and elders, great millstone. Peace, salutations to the men that's here pushing this truth. And Shalom to the elect. Just finna get into this quick video, quick lesson. All right, on, something the brother had posted, John, the first chapter, and I started reading it, and, Spirit hopped on me to do a video, do a lesson. All right, so we're just gonna get straight into it. This is John 1 and verse, and of course, at the start of John, this is basically, at the start of John, the first few verses is speaking about, the Yahushua and the angels, the creation, the creation of, this world that we're living in now, and Lord willing, we're part of that. We were some of them men, some of them, angels that was doing so. Cause that'd be very, very, that'd be a very blessed position, But John 1 and start at 5. It says, "And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not." And see, and that light being Yahushua, all right, shining in, from back then, all right, when he was on the scene, as himself, preaching this truth. All right, what you had, niggas, you had wicked scribes and Pharisees, all right, that didn't understand because what? The spirit wasn't on them, And even to this present day now, Yahushua, he sent us, Lord willing, we were sent. Lord willing, I was sent, to condemn this world now. All right, we preach the gospel of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua, and you see, majority of these people, they can't get it. Of our people, they can't get it. That's why the scripture speaks about 2/3 that's going to perish here in this land, America. 2/3, all right, are the ones, the so-called Negros, Latinos, and Native Americans, who couldn't, receive this truth, who can't receive this truth until they be born back into the kingdom. That's why the scripture speaks about, Salakia, that we won't have to teach our neighbor, no more, roughly paraphrasing, because what? All of our people are going to be righteous when the elect, they get beamed up, brung into the land, and they come through the loins of the elect, the ones that, 2/3 that come through our loins, Lord willing, I'm part of that number, what? They're going to be righteous, but now, they can't understand it because what? Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua, he created his elect, But real quick, comprehend it. It says to lay hold of. Let's see what it's saying in Greek. Let's see. It says to take eagerly, seize, possess, literally or figuratively, apprehend, attain, come upon, comprehend, find, obtain, perceive. Yep, and you see, our people, there's always something to make them fall back from this truth. You got some out here that, they'll listen, they can understand to a certain extent, but something happens or they look at our appearances or, something like that, and it makes them stop believing, But for the elect, they don't, they just know in their spirits, they just know this is the truth, So I want to get this. Start at verse 3. The whole chapter good. 2 Corinthians 4 and verse 3. But if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost. All right, and you go into that word lost. All right, it goes into what's it called? Basically perishing. It is hid to them that are perished. The scripture speaks about certain ones that was born in vain. It's just speak about let the multitude perish that was born in vain. So there's niggas out here that's just a lot of niggas. Majority of this world, their lives is of no value to Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua. But if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost. All right. It says, in whom the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Yahushua HaMashiach, who is the image of Yahweh, should shine unto them. And the gospel of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua ain't shine unto them. Why? Why is that? Because the Lord allowed, Satan, the Lord allowed Satan, to, or I'm gonna just say these angels, these angels to, keep their minds blinded from it, as it speaks about in Isaiah the 6th chapter, it speaks about how, the Lord made angels, made the angel. I'm just get it. Been a little sec since I've been in there. Isaiah 6 and verse 8. And I heard the voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send, and who will go for us? Then said I, here am I, send me. And he said, go and tell this people, hear ye indeed, but understand not, and see ye indeed, but perceive not. Make the heart of this people fat, and make their ears heavy, and shut their eyes, lest they should see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with the heart, and convert, and be healed. So see, there's an angel that's blocking, these people from understanding this truth. Because it's clear as day that this is the truth, but hey, there's no angel blocking our minds, from understanding that this is the truth. You could bring out 100% purest facts, and they may even know that it's facts too, but it's just something wrong that they're like, nah, this can't be it, and that's because what? There's that angel, that angel blocking them, So what is it, John 17? Let's see. No, I think it's John 3. I'm tripping. John 3. So yeah, we come out here, preach this truth. All right, tell our people, so-called Negros, Latinos, and Native Americans, that they're the true biblical Israelites and blessings is coming our way, and that the so-called white man is the devil. But what? These niggas, they just can't get it. You know, because the Lord just didn't ordain these niggas to get it. You know? Here, this is John 3 and verse 17. For Yahweh sent not his son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. And yeah. And that world is not talking about, you know, because there's 3 different Greek words for world. All right, you got oikomene, meaning the whole entire, the whole world. You got eon, meaning an age or rulership. Then you got cosmos. All right, basically a harmonious, you know, the harmonious arrangement, or you know, basically a group, you know. And so this, you know, this scripture right here is speaking about, you know, or this world right here is speaking about, you know, the cosmos, the Greek word cosmos. All right, a set, you know, a set people. All right, it ain't talking about, you know, this whole world. All right, it's talking about basically the Israelites. All right, the so-called Negros, Latinos, and Native Americans. All right. So again, for Yahweh so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. Yep. For Yahweh sent not his son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world might but that the world through him might be saved. He that believeth on him is not condemned, but he that believeth not is condemned already, because he hath not believed in the name of the only begotten Son of Yahweh. And this is the condemnation, that light is coming to the world, and men love darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil. You see? And it's crazy, because all of our, you know, before this truth, all of our deeds were evil. You know? But what? You know, the Lord had a, you know, the scripture speaks about what, the Lord, or Salakia, the remnant will return unto, you know, the Holy One of Israel, as it says in Isaiah the 10th chapter. You know, they're not going to stay upon Esau, Edom, the so-called white man no more. You know, they're going to lean upon Yahweh Shem Shai, and they're going to change to the best of their ability. You know? So it's a set amount of people, set the elect, basically, the chosen ones, all right? They're going to what? Change their ways to the best of their ability and follow after Yahweh Shem Shai, all right? But these other niggas, all right, they can't get this truth because what? As the scripture say, what? Wisdom cannot enter into a malicious soul. You know? Excuse me. You know? So what? These, obviously, you know, these Yahweh Shem Shai, he didn't choose, you know, these people. He didn't choose these, you know, niggas that can't get this truth. You know, they just gonna have to die. You know? They just gonna have to die. And, you know, be reborn in the kingdom. You know? Because, hey, that's... you ain't following after this truth. You basically saying that you hate the Lord. You know? That's what you're saying. Yeah. Here, verse 20. For everyone that doeth evil hateth the light, neither cometh to the light, lest his deeds shall be reproved. Yep. Yeah, and if you're, you see, you look at this world now, you see what? Niggas out here just doing all manners of wickedness, all right? You got one thing that's going on right now. It's called the Streamer University. I'm not really up on it, but I do see clips on it. I see clips, you know, and it's just basically a whole bunch of jakes. And, you know, you got Israelite foreigners in there, you know, and they're invited to some type of, I don't know exactly where they're at, but I know they all got like little rooms and shit, you know. So, and you got faggots there, you know. So imagine what they doing all over there. You know, you got niggas that's blowing up over there, so-called making it, you know. So you know it's wickedness going on over there. Adultery. Sacrifices. Wicked sacrifices, you know. So when they hear this truth, when niggas like that hear this truth, they gonna hate us, you know. They gonna hate the words of Yahweh Shema Shah because it's condemning their conduct, you know. It says, but he that doeth truth cometh to the light, that his deeds may be manifest, that they are wrought in Yahweh Shema Shah. And yeah, us in the know, hey, we gonna stick around, you know, Yahweh Shema Shah. We gonna stick around the brothers, you know. Not saying that we totally 100% perfect. That's why what? Even when we're not 100% perfect, we come around the light. Hey, that light reproves us, you know. So we can, you know, be better. All right, and get our salvation. You know. So yeah, that was pretty much it. I ain't really had nothing. Lord willing, this was edifying. I'm gonna give all glory and praises to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Kakadash, double honors to the apostle and elders, great millstone, peace, salutations to the men that's here pushing.